Welcome back to the Neutral Zone. Today we're going to be continuing along with our 2024 college football preview series. As you guys can see in the title, we're going to be talking about the USC Trojans. Can Miller Moss be the successor to Caleb Williams? Will the receiving core find new faces to step up? Will Lincoln Riley finally focus on defense? And ultimately, will the Big Ten be too much for USC to handle as a first-year member of the conference? Please let us know in the comment section what you guys think of the video. And as always, if you're new to the channel, please like, comment, subscribe. Dad, let's get right into it. How do you feel about USC? Obviously, they did not exceed expectations or even meet expectations last year. So how do you feel about them coming into this year?
Yeah, it's tough. This is one of those teams that is tough to get a read on. I think you got to give love to Lincoln Riley just as a coach. But 8-5 last year was not expected, especially when you talk about having Caleb Williams, a Heisman winner the year before, the number one pick. You don't expect a 8-win season, 8-5 season out of USC, out of Lincoln Riley as a coach. And they lost a lot. They lost, obviously, Caleb Williams. They lost their top two running backs. They lost their top two receivers. So the question is, and the defense was very porous. One of the worst defenses I've seen from a Power 5 national championship contending. And I mean that to say they were at least early in the season in the conversation team. That defense was very porous. So the question is, can they turn that all around and get back to the level of what we expect from a Lincoln Riley and a USC team? We'll see. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so initially, obviously, we did the Michigan video to kind of be the debut of the 2024 preview series, and I have USC beating Michigan. I think both teams are going to lose a lot, but I think initially I gave USC more credit than I should have. Now, I'm not going to go back and say Michigan's going to win that game because I still think it's a 50-50 toss-up type game. But I think USC probably has the most lost production in all of college football. They remind me a lot of that TCU team. The only difference is TCU made it to the national championship game. I know you said that they lost both running backs and two receivers. They lost four of their most notable receivers.
Well, obviously, I said their top two.
Yeah, obviously Zachariah Branch comes back, but you lose Mario Williams to Tulane. Dorian Singer, I believe, went to UCF or some small school. He went to a different school. Obviously, Brendan Rice, Taj Washington went to the draft. You lose Rayleigh Brown to Arizona State. Marshawn Lloyd left. Caleb Williams left. Damani Jackson goes to Alabama. Malachi Nelson goes to Oregon. So, or not Oregon. Where did Malachi Nelson go?
He went to Boise State, didn't he?
Boise. Okay, yeah. And I think it was the UC. Dante Moore went to Oregon. But I just think you lose a lot, not only to the draft, but to the portal, and you don't bring in much. You bring back Bear Alexander. He transferred, obviously, from, I think it was Georgia 2 years ago, either Georgia or Alabama, one of the two. Zachariah Branch was the most electrifying player in the Pac-12 probably last year, give or take. I mean, he was a very good,
especially as a kick returner.
Yeah, as a true freshman. Miller Moss had a big game against Louisville. Well, we don't know what he's going to be when he's the starter heading into the year. You bring back two starting offensive linemen, and then in the transfer portal, you don't really bring much. None of these names really wow me. Obviously, you have Kamari Ramsey, played safety for UCLA. Easton Arnold. He had another last name, but it didn't fit. So those USC fans are going to probably butcher me for that. But Nate Clifton.
And I don't even know how you say that. Mascaria.
It wouldn't have fit. So I just put Arnold. And then you have a top 20 or so recruiting class. No 5-stars in the recruiting class this time around. So I don't think USC is trending upwards at all. Obviously, you go to a much tougher conference. Again, I do have them beating Michigan, but I think initially I gave them a little bit too much credit and respect heading into the season. How do you feel about kind of their players going out compared to their players going in? And where do you see that?
Yeah, no, it's tough. There's a lot of players that we don't know about. To include Deuce Robinson, the big 6'6" wide receiver. It's time for some of these people to step up. Woody Marks came in. It's really, and we talked about him for Mississippi State. It's time for him to be a bell cow. But there's a bunch of people, to include Miller Moss, that we just don't know week in and week out if they can be a star. To include Branch. Branch had a decent season, more of a get the ball in his hands kind of guy. But you're talking about a receiver that only had 320 yards receiving last year. So now you're talking about him as a number one, number two receiver. Again, I'm not saying he can't do it. Just like I'm not saying any of these guys can't do it. It's just we don't know. This much turnover in a team that wasn't necessarily great last year. Again, 8-5 is not great. Is concerning. And then when you talk about moving to the Big Ten now, and I know we'll talk about their schedule here in a minute, but the fortunate thing is they did miss the Big Two. When I say the Big Two, I'm talking about Ohio State, Oregon. Ohio State, Oregon are not on their schedule this year. I think they got a break there because I think those are clearly the two best teams in the Big Ten coming in. So they did get a break there. I think they have a nice, easy opening to their schedule where hopefully they can get some synergy going, some positivity going in that program. But I don't think this is a breakout year, and I don't think you lose this much and get substantially better. You hope some of these additions on defense help because the defense was porous. The defense was bad. You hope bringing back some of the players they bring back on defense help, to include Jalen Smith, the safety. But it's too early to really kind of tell. We're making best guess right now. What's your thoughts?
So I kind of want to go to the next slide to where we look at their schedule. Obviously, like you said, I mean, they don't, in my opinion, they don't start off with an easy schedule. We both have them losing opening day in Vegas to LSU. We're actually thinking about going to that game, so that'll be kind of fun if we do.
Oh, you switch one of us switched our pick.
What do you mean?
Did you pick Michigan to beat them?
I did pick Michigan to beat them. You might not have. So if that's the case, I might have just highlighted yours in red.
Oh, you highlighted. Mine is the Washington. I have them winning. I have them losing to Michigan.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot to move your red.
So, no, that's good.
So bear with us, guys. But I have them losing to LSU, Penn State, Washington, and Notre Dame. My dad has them losing to LSU, Michigan, Penn State, and Notre Dame. So not losing to Washington for my dad, just losing to Michigan. I think the kind of glaring thing for me when you look at their schedule is their ceiling and their floor. You have their ceiling at 12-0. I mean, I think theoretically they could win every game. I have it 11-1 because I feel like it's very, very hard to do that. I don't think they can beat a neutral site game against LSU or a Notre Dame. Notre Dame has had their number as well. And then obviously you have Penn State. Luckily, it's at home, so they don't have to deal with Beaver Stadium. But I have their ceiling at 11-1, their floor at 5-7. I think their floor is a true 5-7. I think you have LSU, Michigan, Penn State, Washington, UCLA, Notre Dame, and potentially a Nebraska. And I think all of those games are going to be tough. I think Nebraska is trending upwards and USC is going backwards. So I think a lot of USC fans will give me hate for saying Nebraska could beat them, but I don't think it's a hot take considering all the close games you guys had last year. USC fans, you guys had last year, and this was a far better team than you had this year heading into, on paper at least. I don't think there's a lot of upside to be viewed heading to this year. Now, I'm not saying USC fans shouldn't be optimistic because Miller Moss looked excellent against Louisville, but that's also a bowl game where we had a lot of opt-outs and stuff like that. So I think just the question marks heading into the season not for Notre Dame, for USC should not be ignored. But I wouldn't be surprised if this team did finish the 10-2 with a potential spot to playoff. But I personally have them going 8-4.
Yeah, I mean, you see, I have a big delta between my floor and ceiling, and that's because when you look at their schedule, there's a bunch of teams that we don't know about right now. Right? LSU has a lot of turnover. Washington has a lot of turnover. Notre Dame has a lot of turnover. Penn State, that Penn State game, I went back and forth on in terms of their ceiling. I think Penn State is going to win that game. I don't know that I'm ready to call that a guarantee. I don't know that I'd be willing to put money on that game, especially like you said, the fact that game is being played in the Coliseum and not at Beaver Stadium. So that's why my ceiling is 12-0, because I wouldn't be shocked if USC won any of these games. Now, do I think they drop? Yep, that's why my floor is 6-6. But just like you, I had them losing to all the same teams, possibly. The only team that I gave them, and I guess you'll say guaranteed win against, was Nebraska. But I can see what you're saying. I think Nebraska is on the up, but I think USC will win that game. So this team has a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of bounce back from the Caleb Williams era. I think they greatly, I guess, didn't live up to the hype and underachieved with him there. The fact that he's never been to a playoffs and never was in I would say, a notable game. I mean, both of his bowl games at USC would have been against Tulane and Louisville, but he didn't play against Louisville. And then obviously you had the Utah losses that were magnified greatly because they seem to have their number, and Utah has never made the playoffs. So it's not like you were losing to, consistently a team like in Alabama where that team was in the national championship hunt every single year, but you're losing to a team like Utah, which kind of felt like a gatekeeper to a sense and was kind of holding a lot of teams out of the playoffs from the Pac-12 for the last 3 to 4 seasons. Obviously, Oregon didn't get in this year, and Utah wasn't in that mix, but it's going to be interesting to see how USC kind of trickles into the Big Ten. I think they have one of the tougher schedules even without it playing Ohio State and Oregon. I think Michigan's going to be tough. I think especially at Michigan, LSU is going to be tough. Penn State is always tough. Washington's going to be tough. You have the UCLA rivalry. You have Notre Dame, which was basically a rivalry, and then you have Nebraska. So I think of your 12 games, 12 or 7 of them, potentially really 8 of them, because I'm going to include Wisconsin as well. I wouldn't be surprised if they lost. Now, I favor them in a lot of these games, but it's going to be very interesting to see how USC shakes out their season. Those of you guys who are new to the channel and you guys enjoy watching these preview series, please do us a favor, like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss an upload. We're going to be continuing this till the season starts. We're like 90 or 85 days away from the season, so we're going to continuously push these out until the season kind of kicks off and gets underway. We appreciate you guys so much, and we will see you at the Florida State preview come Monday. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.